Hi, I am Kelly Austin, your e-learning strategist who is passionate about helping you master the art of teaching online. And I want to welcome you to my new series, Tales of an Online College Lecturer. And I only use the term lecturer because that's what's on my contract. And that is that I'm a distance education lecturer, and I have been since 2004. So I have been teaching online for 17 years. I've designed 9 courses and been teaching those courses in early childhood education. And so I thought that this series would be a good one for me to share with you some of the things that happen when you're teaching online, just in case you're new to the industry or to the field of distance education, or you're already in it and you're like, what in the world is going on? Okay, because students will try you in this environment, and people will do things that they would never do in a face-to-face classroom when you teach online. So I thought, why don't I share some of these stories occasionally and then share some takeaways that may relate specifically or generally to the story. So let's get into it. All right, so before I do that, I wanted to share with you that I have a course called the FACE Method. It is a mini course that helps you to master the art of teaching online and teaching those college courses online. And so I have basically broken down all of the roles and responsibilities that we have in the online environment into 4 major roles: facilitation, assessment, communication, and empowerment. And so this course has 5 lessons. There are practical activities that you can use and apply right now if you are designing your course, if you're teaching your course right now. And there is a journal for critical reflection, because we only get better when we think about what we've done that works and what we've done that needs some improvement. So I want to encourage you to head over to kellyaustin.com and enroll in that course. You can complete it in 2 weeks or less. If you just sit down and block out your time, you can do it. I've had some students complete it in just a week. So I know that it's possible. And so I want to encourage you to take all this information that I've learned over the past 17 years, and I handed it to you on a silver platter in just 5 lessons, and I believe that it's going to bless you. So let's get into this situation here that I wanted to share. Okay, so I wrote some notes so I can tell you the story, not leave anything out. So there was this student, let's call him Troy. Okay, so this student, Troy, registered for my class very late, for the course very late, like 2 or 3 weeks into the course. He, for some reason, was able to get in past the deadline. So I noticed that he immediately got in the course, and in Blackboard, I can see how often, each student logs in and all of that. So he got into the course, and I am one who has, I have quizzes and a midterm and a final in all of my courses. Just about all of them have quizzes and a midterm and a final. And so I have those available the first day of class. All of the quizzes, the midterm, the final, everything's available to students so they can take them at their own pace whenever they get ready. Okay. So this student came in the class late, and we were using a textbook which had approximately maybe 15 chapters, and we covered most of those chapters during the semester. Now, this was a semester course, so I had them for 16 weeks. So imagine he comes in the course, let's say the 3rd week, and he immediately begins to take all of the assessments, and he passes all of the assessments with almost a perfect score. So let's say he made like a 96 or a 98. All of the quizzes were done. He had done his midterm, and he just got into the course. So I'm taking notes like, Now, you have to get in the FACE method to learn how I feel about assessments, and, how nervous you should get about the academic integrity of the assessment and all of that. So we won't get into that now, but let's just say he took all these assessments and, just almost perfect scores, and I'm just taking notes. I'm just observing. So then it was time for our live sessions, and I don't start my live sessions during a semester course until the 3rd week of class. So we had our first session, he didn't show up. We had our second session, he didn't show up. Now, in this course, my students are broken into permanent cooperative learning, formal cooperative learning groups, which means that they meet with the same people at the same time. This is a synchronous course. Forgot to tell you that. So we have class from 6 to 8:45, 1 day a week. And we actually start the small group sessions at 6:30. So in this particular course, the textbook has something called focus questions. And my students participated in a systematic process in their small groups where they would go over these discussion questions in the beginning, and then they might do a case study after that, and they had some specific activities that they did during their time. But they started off with these focus questions. So imagine that I have all of my groups up on the screen, and I'm weaving in and out of the groups because that's what I do. So I may sit in one group and listen and interject when I need to or not. And I went into this particular group where Troy was. And so they were discussing the questions, and I teach my students to speak first and then to type in the chat what they've said. Okay. And we'll talk about that after the story ends. So I go in there, and I also have what's called an instructor's manual that I rarely even look at. But for this particular course, because there were the focus questions and then there were the answers in the instructor's manual, I would have it on my lap as a reference as I'm going through observing the groups. So Troy, shares his response to one of the focus questions. And of course, I told you they speak first and type secondly. He types his question and puts it in the chat. And I'm reading because I'm always reading the chat, and I teach them that also so that I don't have to interject. So if I didn't hear something, when I look in the chat, I can see, what step they're on or what question they're discussing, what their responses were. So I'm over here looking in the chat, and I'm like, wow. And I look down at my instructor's manual, and I look in the chat and instructor's manual, and he has written the exact words that are in the instructor's manual, verbatim, semicolons, commas, capital letters, punctual, everything. Okay. And I'm like, so I said, Troy, in the session, I was like, that is such an in-depth response. I was like, I just really appreciate that. But the interesting thing about your response is that it is exactly what's in my instructor's manual. And I said that in class. And he was like, so suddenly his computer starts to, he's going in and out of the chat room, back and forth, so he comes back in the chat room. And I'm like, what book do you have? And he said, he puts in the chat, he got his book. I think he said it verbally first, that he got his book online. It was a Google book or something like that. And I was like, oh, that's interesting, because I didn't know that the student versions had the exact answers, because I have a student version, of course, that I have in my instructor's manual. That's very interesting. Oh, I forgot to tell you that the reason why he showed up for class finally is because he had missed 2 sessions. And at that time, our university had a drop policy for our online courses. And if you missed 3 sessions, you were going to be dropped from the class. So I had sent him an email and said, if you don't show up, unfortunately, I'll have to drop you from the class. I never said anything to him negatively about his scores on the quizzes, other than I sent him an email congratulating him on doing such a great job, on his quizzes and being able to master that content so quickly. So I wanted him to know that he was on the radar, but I was just, very positive in doing so. So after he said he had a Google book, I said, oh, okay, well, that's fine. I said, could you send me the link to that book, via email? Because I just want to check some things, with that book. So his internet kept going in and out. He ended up, leaving the class session. And then afterwards, I sent him an email and I said, per, our live session today, please remember to send me the link for the book that you were using, because I don't want you to be in jeopardy of violating our academic integrity policies. And that's when I said, I noticed that you've already taken the quizzes that cover a lot of the information that we haven't yet covered yet, which is fine with the perfect score. But I'm thinking that perhaps it may be because of the book that you have. Now, as I'm telling you this, I am remembering now just recently that students are now going online, in case you didn't know, and they are using something called Quizlet. And so if you use the publisher's items for your test, because I go through my test and select the items that I want to use. I don't just upload the publisher's quiz or test. But if you use theirs, the students are able to go online on Quizlet and they're able to get the answers. And this has happened with in my courses and a lot of my colleagues' courses where the students are making perfect hundreds on all their quizzes. So that is the scenario. So let's see what we can learn from this. Now, the first thing I want you to do and make sure that you do is to record all of your sessions. And you want to do this because if students are disrespectful, if students basically what happened in this session. If a student responds a certain way, you have record of it. It's on record, it's recorded. And you let your students know in your syllabus that all sessions will be recorded, okay? All right, so that's a tip that I want you to walk away with that, is just to cover your tracks. I remember when I first started teaching, a veteran teacher told me, she said, you write everything down in your planner because your memory is not good as you think. And one thing I love about the digital space is that everything is recorded, that I have reports that I can pull up of how often a person logs in and out of class, exactly where they were when they were logged in and all of that. So that's one of the good things because you can track what's going on with your students and how much they're interacting with the content in your online course. The next thing I want you to focus on is to implement a systematic procedure for your live sessions. And I actually have a series on this channel about group activities that I would love for you to watch, because having a systematic procedure for live sessions allows your students to prepare for the session, okay, which makes it more engaging for everyone, but also you're able to readily identify those students who are not prepared because they knew in advance what you would be covering, how you would be covering it, and responses like what Troy gave let you know that, hey, okay, this is dishonest. You got this from somewhere else. Also, let me go to the point, all the points before, because I just thought of another point that I may not have included here. I want you to create permanent groups for formal cooperative learning experiences. Now, formal cooperative learning is said to be the type of cooperative learning, not just group work. So if you don't know what cooperative learning is, that's another video for another day. But formal cooperative learning is when you have students either meet for prolonged periods of time to complete certain tasks. So let's say they might be working on an activity or a project in class, and they're going to meet with that group over and over again, maybe 3-4 weeks. They're meeting with that same group. Or it may also be that they're meeting for an entire course period, an entire live session to complete, an activity that you've given them. It's very different than, you may be familiar with breakout groups and where you're in a whole group and you just, click and put these students with these students, these students with that students. I actually have an actual group page and a separate group link for all of my groups. So that's something that I encourage you to do that has worked really well for 14 of the 17 years that I've been teaching online. All right, the next takeaway that I want you to have is that ask students to speak first and then post in the chat. And I shared some reasons for you. When they speak first and post in the chat, you don't know what other students are doing, whether their sound is working, whether they even heard. Their sound could be working, but they didn't really hear what that student said. Instead of them having to keep asking them to repeat it, once a student speaks, they type it in the chat. Now, that helps because when they have a systematic procedure that they've already prepared for. So they have a lot of their answers or responses or ideas already written out or typed up. And I train them on that. have a module of training before we ever meet live. And that is why we don't meet live until the 3rd week. It's because I take them through a process of training them on these expectations for the live environment. So when students speak first, okay, then those are those students that, auditory, but they also have the visual of being able to read what a person said and also being able to respond in the chat if they want to, or to be able to, or to be able to say, okay, well, what did you mean by that? Or, if they're working on something specific that they're going to turn into me, they can look at what each other have said, what each person has said, and they can decide, where they want to go with their responses. So this is just really a good tip for that virtual space. All right, next. Address issues verbally when possible and in writing. So you might be like, well, Kelly, you said that to him during the live session? I did, because I wanted him to know that I am watching these sessions. I am here. When I have these sessions, all of these group sessions up, it says that I'm in all of them. Okay. They just don't know when I'm physically watching or listening to them. And so I wanted him to know that I see what you're doing, and you're not going to get away with that. And so I wanted to let you know that as we close out, guess what happened with Troy? Troy never sent me the book via email. And I guess he realized that I was serious about the academic integrity policy that we have at our university, and he dropped the class. And upon talking to another colleague, I found out that he was a very dishonest person when it came to taking the online courses. So that's my tale that I wanted to share with you today. I hope that you got something out of it. Remember to head over to kellyaustin.com to learn the 4 keys of mastering the art of teaching college courses specifically online. But I'm here to tell you that the strategies that I teach you, the tips that I teach you apply to any grade level. You just have to adapt them, because good teaching is good teaching. Good facilitation is good facilitation, no matter the discipline, no matter the grade level. So even if you teach high school or middle school, or maybe even elementary school, I've had some teachers from middle school, some coaches from middle school to take the course, and they were able to train their middle school teachers on how to facilitate the online process. So this course, I am telling you, is a great course. I wish that I'd had this information before I started teaching online, or at least in the beginning. But now it's available to you. So I wish you well in that. If you have any comments that you want to share regarding something similar that may have happened to you, any questions you want to ask me, please put them in the comments. I look forward to connecting with you further. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel at bit.ly Kelly's channel. That's Kelly with an IE. See right here? Kelly's channel. All right. See you next time. Bye-bye.